Hello once again, and welcome back to the Gaming News Canada show presented by Bede Gaming. And yes, it's your host, Steve McAllister. It's been a while since we had a conversation on the podcast with an insider on the business of esports and esports wagering. At first blush, it's a time of unrest for the industry, including most recently with layoffs at Riot Games and the collapse of Esports Insider. And last month, here at home, there was an announcement from Rivalry that is shutting down its Ontario business. And Rivalry was known in the very early days of the open and competitive sports betting and iGaming marketplace as an operator that really specialized in esports, and that's how it's got its foot in the door of the business. On the other hand, however, it appears to be business as usual for Oddin GG, the 8-year-old Prague-based business that provides B2B products and services around esports odds, trading, and risk management. So to get his perspective on the current and future states of the esports industry, we welcome for the first time the co-founder and managing director of partnerships for Oddin GG, Marek Suchar. Hey, Marek, thanks so much for joining us.
Many thanks for having me, Steve.
Hey, Marek, before we get going on the state of the industry, I just, as I mentioned, Oddin was formed in 2018, and I always like to get the story from people we have on the podcast, just how these companies started. And, and again, I think this is the first interview we've had with someone from Czechia. So just the backstory on creating Oddin GG and your involvement in that.
I'm one of the co-founders, and funnily enough, the entire idea and angel investment was actually put together in one pizzeria here in Prague. Original idea about and around Oddin GG was that we would be the esports-centric bookmaker that would create its own lines. As soon as we got the investment and when we learned about the tricky parts of how big budget we would need for marketing, for licensing and other stuff, because the founders were mostly technical. I'm on the business side, but the other founders, they were from data scientist landscape, from development. We agreed that let's put together essentially a B2B arm where we would be the brains behind the odds calculation, behind the risk management, eventually creating iframe. So this is where we relatively quickly pivoted from what was supposed to be B2C to B2B, and we've stayed in B2B ever since. And for now, I would say that we are doing extremely well.
That's a great segue, Marek, to address the elephant in the room right away. And again, one reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast is we don't do a lot on esports betting. I mean, we'll highlight stories in the newsletter and that, but it's been a while. Stephen Salz from Rivalry's been on the show a few times, and we've certainly talked to Stephen over the past 5 years about the esports industry. But would like to get, as I mentioned off the top, get your perspective. And before I do that, I want to read a quote from Oddin's recent financial results, and this is a quote that came from you. And quote, billions of bets flow through the Oddin GG network annually, giving us a read on esports betting that's hard to get anywhere else. What we saw in 2025 is that esports stopped behaving like a single vertical. The growth rates might look similar across titles, but what drives that growth is completely different. If operators continue to treat esports as one category, they'll miss where the real leverage is. The next stage of growth comes from understanding the differences and building around them. Just want to expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. As you were saying, right, we are on the B2B side of things. So essentially, we are the pick and shovels of esports betting. So in that regard, yes, we've seen the more successful bookmakers, less successful bookmakers. But eventually, what we've seen across the last 5 to 7 years was that the esports betting on our side, when it comes to handle, continues to grow. So from the perspective of even the bookmakers that we've been working with for a couple of years now, the entire industry is essentially growing year to year. Of course, we are growing not just from the perspective of existing clients, but also from the perspective of new clients that we are able to acquire. But in that regard, we have not seen any specific slowdown of the industry in a sense. We have multiple clients that started with us. One of them is Tipsport from Czech Republic. They started with us 5 to 6 years ago, and they did an interesting analysis back in the day. They were looking by accident because they were looking at something else. But what they found in their reports was that when it comes to esports, every fourth, every fifth ticket from the new better actually came from esports. And the hypothesis was very simple. What would happen over the long run if this continues to be the case? And the hypothesis confirmed to be correct because right now, and I spoke to head of sportsbook regularly. Last time that we spoke, which was last year, esports is already the fourth biggest title when it comes to live. So it is even bigger than some of the regular sports. And also when it comes to the handle, this is already 7% of the handle. So so Czech Republic and Slovakia, they are quite specific also when it comes to esports because it is relatively evenly split across the top titles such as Counter-Strike, Dota 2, League of Legends. And I will be slightly specific because when you look globally, many times you have mostly Dota 2 in Peru. You have Counter-Strike in Brazil. You have Counter-Strike in Denmark or Sweden as the main titles. So there are different jurisdictions, different states, where depending on the viewers, different esports essentially picked up. And this is similar as we would be looking, we would be speaking probably about Canada. In Canada, a lot of things is about ice hockey. In America, in US, a lot of things are about American football, about day football. And this is the similar for esports. You would not be able to push a certain titles in the states where essentially the other titles picked up. So what I usually refer to is that when you speak about the esports, you are speaking about multiple different things, and we will speak even more about different esports, similar as you do not speak about a ball sports, and you would put volleyball there, football there, soccer there, and also tennis, right? They are separate, they have different audiences, they have different fan base, and the same is already applying to esports as such.
That leads me to wonder, Marek, is it not, I think to try to get, I'll take myself as an example, like to get me, I'm not a big NBA fan, so I'm probably not going to bet on the NBA, but I'm a big NHL. I watch a lot of NHL hockey, so I do bet, probably $5 to $10 a week on NHL games. And I wonder sometimes if we get so focused on, we have to get people like me to start betting on esports, or else we're not doing a good job. And to your point, there's an esports audience out there, and you market to that audience, and you do try to grow to some extent. You try to, but the focus should be more on providing that esports bit, different experiences, different products, innovation, and not be concerned so much about converting that NFL fan or that NHL fan to become an esports bettor.
Exactly. You follow the eyeballs, right? What the people are either playing or watching, they would eventually want to bet on it. So this is what you follow. At the same time, when it comes to esports, you have already the intersections where even though somebody would be just a soccer fan, there is eFootball solution. So even if nothing in real football is being played, you still have 24/7 solution where there are semi-professional players that are playing, and you can come. This is faster game, but at the same time, when you are watching it, even though this is played by two players, you exactly know the dynamics of the soccer itself. So you know what you are betting on. Even though this is an esports game, from your perspective, this is very much like a real football or a real soccer game.
When you look, I mentioned off the top about the kind of the roller coaster ride that esports has been on, and just doing some preparation for the podcast, you're pretty blunt and quite candid in your comments about the industry, and just like what is the real state of the industry, and is it like, is there a reason for, if you're an esports business, to panic, or is the industry in a pretty good place right now?
Depends probably about the game we would be talking about, because again, esports industry is not one thing in a way similar as I was given the example of ball sports, right? We have FIFA World Cup coming at the same time. This has no impact on ice hockey or volleyball or any such a sport. So from that perspective, esports is also growing with different verticals. Right now, if we look at the industry, as you were saying, Riot Games, there were some layoffs, but at the same time, there were mostly essentially related to XKO as a new game. When you look at the stage of Counter-Strike, based on what we've heard and seen in the industry, Valve is extremely happy with this stage because there are a lot of tournaments in tier 2 scene. There are a lot of newcomers when it comes to tournament organizers coming to the scene. So the teams have a huge calendar to play. So the Counter-Strike essentially is in a shape and form that it hasn't experienced it in the last, let's say, 5 years. When you look at Mobile Legends Bang Bang, the title is expanding. It is also expanding in a certain geographies, which is mostly Southeast Asia. They have also a lot of potential in Latam, potential in Europe. So they want to grow in that regard. When it comes to Dota 2, complex game on the market for quite some time. Again, having its audience and trying to put some things together where they can attract much more audience because the game is quite complex. And people are kind of getting used to much more simpler games that are much more fast-paced. So if we look at the industry as such, from the perspective of esports, I wouldn't say that one applies and one fits all. But at the same time, the industry as such is getting in a shape where it is much more professional, I would say. There are definitely the bumps on the road, but at the same time, you have stakeholders such as Esports World Cup Foundation that is investing a lot into the ecosystem itself, even into less known games or, let's say, less established. And I also want to say that on the West Hemisphere, we are to some extent arrogant about understanding what is working in the East Hemisphere, where you would have different titles that are popular. And again, as we were discussing, whenever you have a player base, fan base, and you have the eyeballs, eventually you will have the handle as well from the perspective of betting. Also, one thing to specifically mention is that if you look at a lot of esports games, from the betting perspective, betting is definitely in the pool of top 2, top 3 sponsors. So this is one of the reasons I believe that historically, North America has been struggling as well because betting was not fully legal. Even right now, it is legal in some particular states in US. When we look at Canada, Ontario, good to go. Alberta are moving there. So there are also a couple of roadblocks that didn't help the teams to get in a shape and form in terms of monetization, where they could have been, should be the betting fully legalized as esports betting, also in North America.
Hey Marek, where does Canada? You mentioned Canada earlier. Like, what's the picture look like in Canada right now with not only with regards to the esports industry, but with Oddin's business?
So proportionally, considering how big Canada is, many of the partners that we work with are referring to Canada as being one of the core markets globally, many times in top 5. So essentially, from that perspective, Counter-Strike lives and breathes in North America. So this is one of the titles to go. Also, for quite some time, we are licensed in Ontario. We are right now looking at Alberta. We have multiple clients there, such as Betway, where we also work very closely when it comes to integrity part of esports that is many times not well understood. So we work closely with ESIC of being fully compliant with the integrity elements. Also, we are providing the integrity reports to the industry stakeholders, such as tournament organizers, publishers, other bodies within the ecosystem. So essentially, we are on top of also the regulatory-wise integrity concerns that are many times being, unfortunately, addressed by the industry more from a non-educational point of view.
Do you think you mentioned Canada as a cool market? I mean, is part of that attributable to the fact that we're such a multicultural, diverse country, and esports businesses are able to tap into that diversity?
Excellent question. My take would be, and this is more like my opinion than actually a hard facts, is that when it comes historically to the publishers, many of them were coming from US, right? And there is a proximity of Canada. So when it comes to servers that are extremely important for the esports games, they were already established there. There was a culture around the streaming as Twitch, these days YouTube or Kick, where essentially these players were able to stream, people were able to follow, then they were able to improve the game, because when you watch a professional, it is much better, or it can give you much more insight when it comes to esports, how to play the game, than in traditional sports. I can watch Ronaldo or Messi million times and I would still be not able to do what they are doing, right? But when it comes to strategy elements in Counter-Strike, yes, I might not shoot as fast, but I can apply certain strategy into my gameplay. So from that perspective, and also if you look globally as the developed markets where you had back in the day 10 15 years ago access to the computers, then you would have been much better off to actually be able to play those games. And this is the things where we are seeing in Southeast Asia, in Africa, in Latam, where many times essentially, let's say Africa, they are completely skipping the computers and consoles and they are directly going to mobile.
Wow.
So you would have also different preferences for different venues how to play the games because of the historical development of a certain states or certain geographies.
Have you seen an evolution of the betting trends around esports since your company started, Marek? Like, is there, I guess, has there been growth in e-play betting, or as you add fans, are they betting on different things? Have you seen changes in the way people bet on esports over the 8 years that you've been in business?
Absolutely. The entire Oddin GG was based on the fact that when we looked at the market from the perspective of mostly in-play betting, many times you were able to bet only halftime within the game. So the lines became closed because nobody was able to provide the lines for that. There were just a couple of things that you were able to bet on. So map winner or match winner, but at the same time, there were not the maps, the markets such as duration, over under number of kills, over under these kind of things. So we came with that to the market, and many times what we've seen was that right now I would say more than 80% of the betting happens in live. So while the game is being played, only very limited part is happening in the play match. And essentially from that perspective also we introduce much more live markets, better widgets when it comes to the what is happening actually in the game. We have introduced BetPeak, which is the way how you can watch the game as you want in Counter-Strike. This is not like the spectator is giving you the angle of a certain player, of a certain part of the map. You can watch and see the game as you want to watch it, also from the perspective only a certain player that you love and you would like to learn more from his gameplay. So there are much more things that we've seen in the last 7 years that were more in the fast-paced gaming as such, betting in live, having much more options to bet on, and also having different user experience that I'm not being forced to watch what somebody else want me to watch, but I can essentially define my user experience in that regard as well.
Yeah, that for me, that brings up, it's funny when I go to conferences over the past 5 years, Marek, some years it seems like every second conversation I have, someone's talking about personalization, and personalization it'll be on people's radar for a bit, and then it kind of blends in the background, and then it'll come up again. But it sounds like that's what you're talking about, is the personalization is still a very important part of what not only the operators are trying to do, but companies like Oddin.
Absolutely. Also from the perspective of, you have this many times in sports where you have such a big personas that many times they are bigger than the team itself. And people would essentially rather follow that player. And if he changes the roster, they would continue following him. And this way, also the teams actually gain a following because the fans are moving with the player. In esports, this is even more built into the nature of it, because many times you have the players that are streamers and people are able to watch them play. You can't just go and watch on regular basis the training of your favorite ice hockey player. You can watch the training of your football, soccer, or football player. With esports, this is many times happening where they are big personas, players, but at the same time streamers. And essentially, that's why also when we are looking at the esports as such and betting, player props are many times working extremely nicely, where people are more betting on the performance of the player himself within the game, not just the entirety of the team.
Is your iGaming platform ready for Alberta? Bede Gaming is ready to support your new market entry with a SOC 2 compliant platform, multi-tenant infrastructure model, and unlimited configurability. Future-proof your iGaming performance today with a solid foundation for your next province. Bede Gaming is your partner for success. Get in touch at bedegaming.com. You mentioned integrity earlier, and it's a really important issue. we're seeing right now with professional sports in North America. I mean, we're recording this interview on Friday, March 13th, and last week we had two Major League Soccer players who are in trouble for suspicious betting activity, and we, I'm sure you've been following what's going on with betting scandals in the National Basketball Association and U.S. college sports, and and we have heard in the early days of starting to cover this industry, I did talk to people about concerns around integrity monitoring and in esports. Can you maybe just talk for a few minutes, Marek, about the how Oddin supports companies with integrity monitoring, and are there reasons to be concerned right now, especially around the prop betting and live betting that you talk about?
Not if you are with Oddin, I would say. We have just last year, we have traded multiple billions of euros in handle on our lines, and 76% of our volume essentially comes from our risk management. So our trading is able to spot a certain strange patterns in real time. They are able to react when it comes to the lines, when it comes to putting the teams or players on the blacklist, block list, and we are able to inform our partners about that as well. On regular basis, we are also with the partnering company within the holding Runestone preparing the integrity reports to the tournament organizers, to the publishers, where we are essentially showing this is the traction that we've seen, this is the strange gameplay that we've seen, and we are trying to also fight this kind of behavior on the market. At the same time, what I can say is that in the last 7 years, the industry has definitely developed, because back in the day and even these days, it can happen that somebody's qualifying for a bigger tournament. This is tier 3 team with the players nobody ever heard of. Many times nobody will ever heard of again. And then it is hard for you to first set up the lines, but also follow whether these guys are okay when it comes to integrity perspective, right? And in the past, what happened was you had a tournament with $5,000 in the prize pool, and just betting on yourself or against yourself, you could actually won probably 20K, right? So there was a motivation, but with the actions from the market, from the bookmakers, for the likes of Oddin, we were able to educate the market about certain behaviors that are not accepted. Industry has matured. We have right now a connection with many of the publishers, with many of the tournament organizers, where we are trying to help. There was a lot of work that also ESIC put in place in terms of the guidance, in terms of rule books, where essentially people and players have learned that there is a certain behavior that is okay, there is a certain behavior that is not okay, because in every professional sport, essentially, even if this is not your match, but at the same time you have a certain understanding of the league, you shouldn't be betting because you can have an inside information. Yesterday I was with the guy playing today on his party and he drank a lot of alcohol, so probably his performance today will not be the best. So these are the elements that we are trying to put into the place for esports as well. That is still a maturing industry, a lot of younger players, a lot of industry veterans. So there are a lot of things that you can put as a precautions. At the same time, because of the billions of dollars and euros that are coming through our books, essentially we are able to see those strange patterns and then report them properly and make sure that whoever has been doing that, we are protecting our partners in terms of bookmakers. At the same time, we are protecting the tournament organizers, where there can be a backslash on Reddit or other channels look like what just happened in that match. So we are trying to essentially be the safeguards of the industry from the perspective of what we are able to see and what we are able to spot.
And it feels like it's almost like drug testing with sports, that it's always a race to kind of keep one step ahead of the bad guys, right?
Absolutely. One of the things that we have learned is that when you are watching just the gameplay, you never know. The guy was under the stress, so he missed. The guy wanted to try something crazy, so essentially the strategy didn't work out. Was that a match fix? Might be. As soon as you pair that essentially as a gameplay with the tickets, you will have much more clear answer whether this was really, really suspicious given the volume that was coming in, or this was just a human nature, right? We are humans, so we make mistakes.
Are you involved in the education of the players and other stakeholders in those games, Marek?
So not directly with the players, but we've been working with many tournament organizers that we work with. Also in terms of licensing in a way that we have multiple licenses in North America, Ontario, also in US, New Jersey, Ohio, Colorado, multiple other states. And many times what you have to do there is that you can be licensed, your partner as a bookmaker can be licensed, but at the same time, the event itself might not be cataloged. And there's a certain scrutiny from regulators, which is good, to avoid to have a proper integrity safeguards in place. So we worked with our partners on the side of tournament organizers to put those particular integrity procedures in place so the regulators are happy with the outcomes.
You referenced Alberta a few minutes ago, and I'm just hoping you can maybe take us behind the curtain a little bit and just the kind of preparation work and the conversations that you and other people at Oddin are having right now at looking towards doing some business in Alberta when that market opens later this year.
Yeah, this is with our regulatory team. This putting all the information together. So, I'll see whether my fingerprints will need to be there yet again, as with many states in US already. So we are just preparing there. We would like to be there with our partners. So essentially for us, it is yet another state in North America to be licensed in. At the same time, as I mentioned to you, when it comes to Canada, this is in general one of the top markets for our bookmakers, and we just follow this route in a way that we are definitely excited to be licensed in Alberta as well.
Marek, just and further that, like, what are your focus right now and your priorities, and kind of looking ahead to the rest of 2026 and beyond?
Is it more related to Oddin, or is it this more related to Marek?
I guess, and you and the company at large.
So Oddin has cemented itself as a leading B2B provider when it comes to esports betting. At the same time, we've seen a lot of opportunities when it comes to fast gaming content. Also, when it comes to the new wave of AI, which we believe there will be a lot of opportunities on the side of what we call avatars, when it comes to making the things much more engaging for the bettors to essentially work with. So Oddin is becoming a wider holding that is called Realms Group, where Oddin is one of the verticals, but at the same time we are putting much more things together. One of the projects I will be closing, I will be working very closely with, is Valka AI. That is our sister company, or one of the companies under the Realms, where we are putting together, and we've been working on avatars, so essentially the replacement of the real people when it comes to either live dealer, when it comes to our product as eSIM, so simulated games such as eFootball, eBasketball, where we believe there are a lot of opportunities on the market when it comes to new content. On top of it, we'll be working also on the new project that is called Penalty Arena, which is again fast-paced, and it brings, because many times when you look at the market, you have essentially a video stream and you are betting. And this is it, this is the full engagement. What we've been trying to do similar as BetPeak, where you can follow the Counter-Strike match the way you like. Penalty Arena allows you to select, it is penalties. So penalties in soccer, where essentially you can bet on the outcome of the penalty, whether this will be a goal or whether this will be safe. But at the same time, we allow you to select and vote where you want the ball to go, because we have the proprietary machine that will essentially shoot the ball in the direction of majority of the votes. So again, Oddin has started as an esports expert. We are looking at the engaging products and solutions for the younger generations, and also for the wider pool of bettors. And where we want to eventually move is that we want to have multiple different verticals in place that are still engaging, and they are not just I watch, I bet, but essentially I can work with the solution, and this can be much more interactive for me.
Do you see opportunities, Marek, to grow the demographic in esports? I think, most of us, we equate esports to being young, like high school, university students, young graduates of universities and colleges. Like, is there an opportunity to grow that demographic? And do you think, for example, that when people like you and I, when one day they're 21, the next all of a sudden they're 35 years old and they're married and they have children, are those people still involved in? Are they still engaged in esports?
Yeah, what we are seeing is that definitely there is one misconception about esports where many times people are looking at it from the perspective this is underage players, underage bettors, all of that is bad, and there are a lot of integrity concerns. None of that is actually true. Again, integrity we already touched, so I'm not going into that one. But at the same time, you have the players they can be younger, they can be older, but many times they are definitely 18 plus. When it comes to bettors, this is all with the regulated sports books, right? They will not allow anybody under the 18 to essentially bet. And coming to the original question of the fan base, I would say that we are, as we touched already, we are following the lead of the game success, where there are the games that has been around for quite some time, more than 10 years. League of Legends, Dota 2, Counter-Strike, Valorant, Mobile Legends, Bang Bang, that are recent addition. And because these fan base has been playing the game, they've been watching the game. Many of them decided eventually to bet on the game, which betting is just an additional layer of the engagement, where you are putting the money where your mouth is. The big benefits that we are seeing, and that's why we are strong and we are extremely bullish on esports, is that if you look at traditional sports, in the last probably 10 years, the only additions that you had was probably pedal, that is, having its prime right now. F1 that is moving into the mainstream, also thanks to Netflix and the series and other things. And that's pretty much it. Maybe you will be able to find one more sport. MMA probably is growing as well. But outside of that, when you look at esports, Valorant was not a thing a couple of years ago. It was not even developed from the publisher. MLBB has been growing nicely. You have the multiple different titles coming in. So we believe that essentially from the perspective of esports, it is still one that ball category, but it will be distinguished in the future, where you will go to the sports book and you have right now a couple of sports book already, where you will not find your soccer, football, volleyball, tennis, and esports. You would already find football, soccer, tennis, Counter-Strike, Dota 2, League of Legends, because they do understand esports is not just one thing, it is multiple things. I need to promote it differently. There are different channels. The demographic is different. And these categories will just evolve, and there will be more of them. Because right now, if you speak to younger generation, yes, many of them follow their national team, some traditional sports teams, but at the same time, many of them are gamers. So they game, and esports as such is just the pinnacle of gaming. So if there is a lot, or if the game has a lot of followers, if it started to be more structured in a way of competition, eventually you will have the esports section as well. So again, on our side, we believe bullishly that there will be much more esports coming to the scene, growing, and we will be growing with them.
Hey, just thought that before we let you go, Marek, I just wonder if you can look into your crystal ball and let our listeners and viewers know, is there one big story that you're watching or one big prediction that you have for the esports industry in 2026?
For 2026, we will continue seeing the esports to become more and more professional. And on the side of esports betting, we will see more and more sportsbook understanding that this is not just your novelty that everybody spoke about and it is actually not delivering. They would understand that this is the audience you are missing in your sportsbook and you need to attract. Otherwise, you will be left behind, specifically from the perspective of younger generation, because they are harder to get. They are many times elusive to the side of advertisement and all of that. But at the same time, they are there, they are online. Many times they are extremely digitally savvy. They usually have much higher than average income. And they are also crypto savvy, which we are seeing with a lot of partners as well. So essentially, esports needs to be part of your proposition. Otherwise, they will be part of the sportsbook that will be underserved from the perspective of a certain generation that is more into the esports than into the traditional sports.
Hey, Marek, I lied. I got one more question, and that's just listen to you talk there. And here in Canada, there's a lot of there's a lot of advertising by operators. Not as many as the people who don't like gambling advertising, but would like to believe there is. But it's really it is focused on the NFL and other sports, and of course, because online casino is so popular and online gaming is so popular in Canada, see a lot of iGaming advertising as well.
Mhm.
Do you think that operators are missing an opportunity by not marketing their esports products more, or am I missing the boat? And there is esports advertising that is popping up on social media and targeting that esports audience.
I would say two things. First of all, when it comes to lifetime value of esports better, whatever, and we've seen that in multiple business cases with our partners, whatever you are generating on the esports better, you can, as in esports, you can quadruple that. And what I mean by that is that they bet on esports. At the same time, they bet on traditional sports as well. Many times this can be as big portion as the esports itself. So that is already double the value of the better. And on top of it, whatever they are betting combined on esports and sports, they can bet in casino. So when you look at your esports volume, or GGR, this might not be just it. This can be quadruple of that. Also, what we have seen on the market is that there were, let's say, industry first movers from the perspective of bookmakers, and they've seen what they were able to achieve with the proper product, with the proper advertising, with speaking to the right audience in terms of esports. And of course, they will not be that vocal about how much handle, how much GGR they are generating there, because they would love this to remain a relatively blue ocean instead of red ocean. And this is where we are seeing where those first movers, that with many of them we are working with, they're extremely happy with their solution. They're extremely happy with the kind of audience they are able to attract, kind of GGR they are able to generate. And of course, they will not be that vocal to their competitors about how successful this strategy is for them. And then you have your sports books that were not first movers, and many times they are looking in the sports book and looking at esports. And for them, this is the category that I do not necessarily understand. Many times it is small in my sports book, and it is many times even actually generating loss. And this is the reason, because the product is not good. So essentially the margin is not good and you can lose money on that. The handle is small because you are the follower, or you are essentially not there at all. So the esports bettors, they will not go to your sportsbook. Why would they? You are not talking to them. They don't see you on the market. You are not part of their favorite teams, favorite tournaments. They go somewhere else. So from your perspective, it's a chicken egg problem that we are seeing. It is small, losing money. Why should I invest? Why, on the contrary, you should be asking yourself, I have a bad product, I have a bad marketing strategy. What should I do about it? So I can essentially see what esports is about.
Hey, Marek, sorry, one last question. Just what you said is fascinating. I just wonder, I don't know if you want to do this or not, but are there certain operators who have taken that advice or just on their own path, recognize the opportunity with esports and kind of change your strategy, and they're seeing the fruits of that labor?
Yeah, absolutely. Many of them are our clients. So essentially, they fix the product, and they are also active when it comes to marketing part of things. So you can see them on the market that are essentially doing a certain things when it comes to marketing. So from that perspective, when it comes to working in certain markets and working in a good way, Betway has been around for quite some time, and they've been essentially very active from the very beginning. And there's a stale volume and slightly growing volume that they've been able to conquer. Betson is extremely active on the market. Also, we are seeing right now Betano moving in the right direction, even though they are missing to some extent the marketing arm. And also the right moves are being done on the market by Stake from multiple angles.
Marek Suchar is the co-founder and managing director of partnerships for Oddin GG. Hey, Marek, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. And listen, let's get you back here later on this year, and we can pick up on this conversation.
Absolutely, Steve. Many thanks for having me. It was lovely chat and very insightful questions as well. So many thanks for having me, and definitely happy to do this yet again.
Great. Thanks, Marek. That's it for this episode of the Gaming News Canada Show presented by Bede Gaming. Again, thanks to Marek Suchar for joining us. You can listen to our conversation on the various podcast apps. You can also watch Marek and I on the Gaming News Canada YouTube channel. Thanks again for all our listeners and viewers for your support of the Gaming News Canada show, and we will see everybody again very soon.